if the bank acts as if it's theirs, is it actually mine? And then
Yeah.
the newsflash, the first thing they discover is that money is actually not yours. It's the bank's money. The moment you've decided to put your fiat, your whatever, Australian dollars, euro, US dollars in a bank, any commercial bank, you actually signed a contract saying that the money now goes to the bank. The bank has the legal authority to then take your money, take a fraction of it, and then lend the rest of that money to someone else with interest so that they can make money.
Mhm.
Hello.
Here she is. Efrat, nice to meet you.
You too, Adrian. How are you?
I'm amazing, thank you.
That's good
You're
to
in
hear.
Italy at the moment. Is that where you said you were sort of traveling through, or?
Yeah, I'm not in Italy. I'm in Lugano, which is very similar to Italy because
Yeah,
everyone
really.
has
Whereabouts
Italian.
is Lugano on the map?
It's the south of it's the north of Italy and south of Switzerland. It's right on the border.
Yeah, really.
Relatively close to Milan.
Lovely. What's the
Mm,
weather like? Must be nice and warm, huh?
nice and warm.
Yeah, not like you in Australia, freezing cold.
I know you've got winter now, right?
Yeah, that's right. All rugged
Where
up.
in Australia are you?
I'm on the south coast, so you must be familiar with Sydney, I would say. So if you were to go like maybe an hour to an hour and 30 minutes south of Sydney, I'm on the south coast there. It's a place called Wollongong. It's in the Illawarra southern, area of like, southern Wollongong, southern Sydney, I should say, sorry. So that's where I live.
So I'm Australian and I have a dual citizenship, Israeli and Australian. I used to live in Melbourne for 6 years.
Did you really? I did not know that.
Now you
How
know.
did I not know?
Yeah. I was married to an Australian guy, and my son lives in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So
How
I
long were you
come
in Australia for?
6 years.
Oh, amazing. Melbourne's
So
a
I know
nice,
where
nice
Wollongong
spot.
is.
Say that. Say it
I
again.
know where Wollongong is, I'm
Oh, you
saying.
know. Okay, that's brilliant. All right. Not many people know. Like when I that's why I fumble around if I'm speaking to someone from, overseas, which is quite often, I fumble around those questions because I'm trying to explain to them where it is. And so Sydney's just an easy way to say, oh, Sydney. Everyone knows Sydney, right?
Yeah.
But if I
1 hour
say,
away from Sydney.
anyway,
That's an easy way of saying it.
yeah, exactly right. Anyway, there's lots to talk about, and I appreciate you spending some time with me today, well, this evening here in Australia. So, there's a lot going on. I know when I first contacted you, maybe you get this a lot, but I saw a really nice keynote speech, and I think it was at a BTC conference, and you're talking about Agenda 30 and all the things that come with it. And I think at that time, I was kind of like reaching out and just sort of looking at some of the things that you were doing and really liking what I was hearing. But boy, since we've organized all of these things, it's almost like a lifetime of news and interesting things have happened around the world, which is just exploding on, a daily basis. So how do you keep up being in as a journalist? How do you keep up with all the current events?
Well, first of all, I don't think that the average person can keep up with the pace of things that is happening because it's just it will give you nausea if you really try to keep up with everything.
Hmm.
So you have to really choose what you focus on and what you care about, and then try to follow credible sources as much as you can these days, right? You have to do some work to find the credible sources. And I normally, I mean, in the topic that I have chosen to be more focused on than others, which is CBDCs and the changing monetary system, the whole digital monetary system, the digital currencies, whether it includes stable coins and Bitcoin and what different countries are doing with that. In that area, which is changing so fast, what
Mm.
I normally do is I go straight to the sources, which are the central banks themselves. So I follow different central banks and I kind of read their white papers from time to time. I analyze them. Sometimes I write about them or I include the information I find in my public speaking, so in my speeches in the different conferences. And I also go and listen to interviews of central bankers in conferences and other places, which is one of the most probably boring and horrible hobbies that you can have,
I bet.
but I enjoy it because I see it as my mission. I need to kind of spy on them and
Mm.
understand what they're doing and where they're going and kind of translate that into very simple terms so that people can catch up with where it's going. Um, and the other thing is, I'm signed up on a few newsletters that those central bankers are signed up on. So some organizations, like there's an organization that I get a newsletter from every day. It's one of the most boring ones ever. OMFIF.
Yeah, it sounds boring already.
Right? It's like a bankers union kind of thing, but they
Mm.
have a daily newsletter. So I'm fed by the same information that they're fed off because I want to understand their sentiment and their narrative and like what kind of information they are being fed with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have all those roundtables and all those gatherings where they learn stuff. So I'm fed from the same source. This is just one example, but there are
Yeah.
many of those type organizations. And the other thing is, we're in an era of decentralized media, and so fortunately, I mean, unfortunately, we got there, but fortunately, we're there. And today, if you have your favorite podcasters and independent journalists and that type of content and knowledge resource, then you should trust those people with what I mean, trust them just by taking their content, but then go and verify what you're finding.
Mm.
I mean, I can give one example. Like one of my favorite independent journalists is James Corbett with the Corbett Report, and
Yeah.
when
He's
he
great.
when he puts stuff out there, some normally on a daily basis, I obviously cannot consume everything, but whatever I do choose to consume, he always puts his sources in there. So I can go and validate what he's bringing me, right? Even though
Mm.
I do trust him these days already, but when he talks about things that I understand one or two things about, like Bitcoin or money or things like that, I
Yeah.
do go and I cross-reference to see where he's bringing his information from and what kind of opinions he has. So yeah, you have to be very vigilant these days with content and keeping up with what's happening in the world. But if
Yeah.
you're a curious human, then this is
Damn.
a very fucking interesting time to be alive.
Yes, that's exactly right. The thing is like when people say independent journalism is dead, it's not dead. It is
Oh,
definitely well and
on the
truly alive.
contrary,
It's
I'd
just
say.
taken a new shape, a new form to what we would normally like to see independent journalism on, which is mainstream media, but it's not. It's just taken in the form of podcasts and social media channels, and things like that that people have been utilizing to spread the word, which is great. I mean, if it wasn't for podcasts, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I people have heard this a lot because when my initial awakening into like the monetary system was through like the Zeitgeist documentaries, back in 2006 or 7 or something
Yep.
like that. So I kind of had a little entry into nine
Fiat.
eleven, the
Yeah.
banking system, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But 2020 was the real turning point because then I was watching it unfold firsthand. I've been a subscriber to, for example, like Gaia TV and things like that. So I was
Yep.
into
Yep. Yep.
alternate kind of things, right? but you would never really speak out too much about whatever, aliens, flat earth, 9/11, conspiracy. You'd kind of keep that to a small circle of friends until you were watching it play out in real life. And then you're like, holy fuck, I have seen this, like I've looked at all the little, almost like dot points of, the red flags and everything like that. But people like James Corbett, like I've had him on the podcast a couple of times. He's so thorough. I mean,
Amazing.
and
And he's been
he's an
doing that for
OG.
like
Like
14 years. Yeah, he's amazing.
absolutely, yeah. He started way back when, like when things were really like left of center. He was already
Mm,
in the throes of it. But when you just have to meet the guy, and this guy doesn't fuck around when it comes to
totally.
details. He really like explores things to the nth degree, and it's interesting. Like when you start to go down these little avenues as to where it comes. I think the thing, I'm not sure if you can relate to this, Efrat, but for me, if you let your emotions get a hold of you, and if you have a confirmation bias of the things that you would like to be true,
Hmm.
um, and then if you also get yourself into this echo chamber of this is all the information that you consume, I find that you can almost detach from your reality in a sense. Like there's sort of like timelines that have been playing out at the moment, and you would experience
Absolutely.
one version of it, and I would experience it another. It's like when you talk about COVID. You can talk about someone to COVID, and they're like, "Man, it's the best fucking time of my life. I got to stop work for 4 months. I spent time with my family. We were at the beach every day. I got paid. Like it was great. I worked from home. I was in my pajamas until 2 p.m. Everything was amazing." And then you talk to people like me, I was like, fuck, it's the worst time. I lost my business, my marriage fell apart, like everything was just, crumbling before my very eyes. And, you know, we live in the same timeline, right? It's an amazing time to be alive in that respect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that COVID was a real shaking event for humanity. And
Mm,
many, many people started their awakening process during that time, including myself. And like you, I was interested in some stuff before, but not to a great extent. And when COVID happened, then it was kind of a violation of my human rights, and people actually thinking that it's legitimate to tell me what to do with my body and what to do with my son's choice, health choices was
yeah,
ridiculous. So that was like one step too far for me. And I kind of went, fuck you, everybody, like to everybody, including my parents, like everybody, my
yeah,
workplace, everybody, friends, and I will do whatever I think is the right thing. And once you're in that state of mind, when you understand that someone has just violated your freedom, your very basic free will and freedom, and you're standing up for yourself, if you are if you're a consistent person and you've got integrity, and it
mm,
comes from a very centered place, very very conscious centered place, you would probably be drawn to then adapt this or expand this to all the areas of your life, because you would start questioning yourself. If I let someone do this to me, or at least they think they can do this to me, it seems legit to them, they would then go ahead and try and do this to me in other areas of life. And if
mm,
this is a red line for me, then, and I draw the line in the sand, then what are the next areas of my life that I need to protect? What else do I need to hedge and make sure that no one touches, that no one tells me, that no one decides for me? Because there we go. Here we discover that so much power have been taken away from us, and we've been kind of sleepwalking into
mm.
that reality where slowly, slowly, the salami tactic, things were kind of done to us and we weren't
Yes.
paying attention. And then one day we wake up and it's like, oh, hold on, this is too
Fuck.
much.
Yeah.
Now we want to kind of step back and say, no, in this area you're not touching, you're not telling me, you're not doing this, you're not this, these are my boundaries. And as you start drawing your boundaries again, you have to really question what areas in your life are compromised, and you're not willing to take any shit, and you're going to redraw those boundaries. And health may have been like an entry ticket to many people with COVID, but then they started seeing other scams and other corruptions in climate related stuff and woke related agendas, like all the gender stuff. And then they may have paid attention to the weather and the geoengineering, and then they may have paid attention to money. Now, since money is the like you were saying, you watched the Zeitgeist, so you kind of understood that the fiat money system is corrupted. That is one of the systems or one of the areas where I see most people being stopped and not carrying it forward to actually do the work and then
Agreed.
hedge themselves. And that is a very interesting point. I mean, we can dive into that. Why
For
does it
sure.
happen that people stop there and not carry through with that investigation? And I think it has to do with cultural limitations that exist today in Western society, where, money is something that is reserved, first of all, for men, and secondly, for people who work in finance and economics, right? So even if you're a man, you may not be well educated about money, but you would have some basic understanding of it. And then when someone tells you, hold on, that system is corrupt as well, you need to learn and take care of yourself. We're too lazy, and we're too afraid to rock the boat because we feel like we can never catch up to it's a big thing. It's a big system. Like
Mhm.
how can I possibly understand what's going on here? But really it's very similar to COVID, where once you start pulling on that thread of health, you understand how much doctors or other, scientists, experts, so called, are the ones that we are being told to trust. They are fed with certain information, and there is a certain incentive structure in place to get them to operate the way they do. And it's very similar in the monetary system or in the financial system, where you have bankers and accountants and financial advisors and lawyers, etc., etc. There's so many people around that system that have a certain incentive structure in place to kind of understand things to a certain limit and not question anymore above that, right? So for example, if you talk about inflation with the average financial advisor or banker, or whatever position people will hold in a financial system, they would assume inflation is a natural thing and the state is taking good care of it. And, the central bank's role is really to keep inflation steady and make sure that we are not being stolen from. And the whole notion of inflation is theft. And
Mhm.
people really don't know that. They really just take it for granted that it's there, just like the oxygen we breathe. Just like they think that the doctor would prescribe a medicine, it's just a normal thing without questioning what kind of medicine it is, why are we taking it, what are the adverse reactions, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
What's in
So
it? Yeah.
right. So I think pulling on that thread, and the reason why I do this parallel between health and money is because I feel like the community I quote unquote belong to, the freedom movement, let's say, right? The health freedom movement has such a big gap of knowledge and understanding about money. And I would really love to take those people on a journey, because just like they have cracked up the health system, they can crack up the monetary system too. They can
Mm.
understand how it operates and really get under the skin of the fiat matrix, and then own some really valuable insights and knowledge to hedge themselves and to protect themselves inside that corrupt system, because there are things they can do, just like you can protect yourself health wise, and start doing more herbal stuff and integrated medicine and
Mhm.
using light for healing, etc., etc. There are many things you can do with the monetary system as well. And it's not enough to just yell out cash is king, because cash is far from being king. I love cash, but it's
Sure.
it's maybe prince, but it's far from being king.
It's almost
Right.
far
So
from
there are
being a
many
prince. Yeah.
many shortcomings to fiat money and to cash as well.
Are you over 40, successful but unfulfilled? Do you feel stuck, like you're not truly living up to who you really are? So many high achievers wake up and think, I'm a good person, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, yet there's something missing. Well, you're not alone. I've been there myself. quite a few times. And quite frankly, it took a lot of years of really fucking around, trying to figure out what I now call your higher self blueprint, which has enabled me to live a life and make a living with my passions and my purpose. If you're ready to break free from a life that's holding you back, I'm hosting a free training around the 5 pillars of success that will enable you to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. So click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you in the training. But for now, let's get back to the podcast.
I agree. Look, my personal experience is an interesting perspective to hear your take on it. And I've heard a lot of your interviews and podcasts and things that you've done to get an idea of like where you come from that perspective, because you kind of went, like, for want of a better phrase, like balls deep into it, and then really took risks that other people just, and including myself, are just, up until this point not prepared to take. There's an interesting, I don't know, I've been in business for over 20 years, 22, 23 years, right? So I think it's just like the whole, like, your default program is to go to the things that are familiar and that are known and comfortable. And so for me, when it comes to health, like, and all of the things around the restrictions of our, like where we could go and what venues we could participate in, and things that to do with my health, I felt like maybe my knowledge was above average, and I have I don't know, like a distaste for authority anyway. And that's just the way I've been since I was a little boy. So I kind of figured out ways to work around it. And I felt empowered by the fact that I could do it. When it comes to money, I am the person that you described is like, that's the last thing, even though I've been in business for such a long time. And I knew that this digital era was imminent. I personally
whether we
believe
like
that
it or not.
that's true, but I think, Efrat, like a lot of people that are in this quote freedom side of things are of the opinion that digital currency is a bad thing. It spells disaster for our economy, and that there's no real alternative, and we're walking into this large abyss of the unknown, which is very frightening and scary. And so when this whole cash is king and all that kind of stuff, things keeps throwing around. Yeah, I get it. I'm like, well, it's speaking about like email lists. I was on Jamie McIntyre's email list in 2010, and he said, "Hey, there's this thing called Bitcoin. You should probably put $1,000 on it." And I'm the fucking idiot that didn't. So I was just like, even $1,000 was nothing. Like back in 2010, I could have just.
But you're not, because I was
didn't.
the same. I will
Yeah,
tell you all about it, but you're
sure.
not. You're not.
But
I know
that's
what
my opinion. I think like there's a quantity that is known and there's a quantity that's unknown. And I am very cautious around digital currency. As much as I am dabbling in that space and I'm investing and things are going seemingly well, it's largely a gamble. I
you're
feel like
only
I'm at a
cautious because you
casino.
do, yeah, but you're only cautious because you don't have enough education, enough information. If you
I agree.
did,
That's why
you
I'm
would have
speaking to
more
people like you.
conviction, just like you do in health,
Yeah.
right? So the more we acquire education about a certain topic, the more confident we become on it, right? I was never into money. I mean, my background is computer science and then marketing and tech.
Sure.
Like, I've never been a money person. And I love nature. I love traveling. I love, hanging out with my son and my friends. Money was never a hobby for me. Okay, I'm like the layman, right?
Sure.
The kind of average person. The only reason I decided to stop and land on that topic is because I feel like I need to be the one doing service for humanity, showing people that not all digital is the same. It's just like you and me talking about health now and saying that the COVID-19 vaccine and ivermectin are the same because they're both medicines, right?
Sure.
How different are those two things, right?
Mhm.
So it's like you putting in a bucket all digital stuff and saying all digital is bad. No, no, no. Not all digital is bad. You and I are currently speaking on a Zoom call,
Yeah.
on a video conference, recorded live. It's quite spectacular that we have this technology in place. It is digital. It did not exist about 20 years ago. And so digital is not all bad. It's just that people are so traumatized by what happened during COVID
Agree.
and by the state overreach to their life that now all they can see is digital is surveillance. And so, yes, there are a lot of elements that we have to be vigilant about, privacy and how do we handle our identity online and things like that. But do not put all digital currencies under the same bucket. It's just a misconception. It's just out of lack of education. So if you want me to break down like the big differences in digital currencies, just so that people start breaking down their own fear, it's just a misconception based out of lack of education information. And so
Yeah.
when you look at CBDCs, which are like on the most extreme side of the spectrum of digital currencies, you have retail CBDCs, which are a form of digital money that the central bank of a certain state can issue and give it directly to a citizen, and then have control over that kind of digital wallet, and then have control over expiry dates and program the money and decide what happens and doesn't happen with the quotas, etc. And that is quite draconian and dystopian, and we don't like that idea. And I am in that camp. Obviously, we shouldn't like that idea because the state should not have that kind of power over our financial decisions and our money. Then on the most extreme 180 degrees side of the spectrum, you have Bitcoin, which is a digital currency that has no issuer, so no one entity that issues that currency. There is no central authority, there is no central bank, there is no state, there is not even a CEO of a company. There is no company called Bitcoin. There are no people running that business. How does it work then? It's completely decentralized and distributed.
That
And
doesn't
there is
that
a
make you
code.
afraid, Efrat? That doesn't worry you that
Why would it worry me?
there's
I
this massive
learned it.
machine that no one's
I
running?
have spent thousands of hours to learn this protocol and to learn this technology side, economical side, psychological side of this very complex system called Bitcoin.
Hmm.
And I know, so why should I be afraid? Because I've learned. It's not about believing, it's about learning, right? And
Okay.
I've put in the work. So if this system is running code, it's a protocol, just like the internet that you and I now speak on. We speak on a protocol called TCP/IP and HTTP. Those are protocols of the open internet that was created in the 60s and the 70s. Like back then it started. So Bitcoin is another protocol. It's in fact it's an open source protocol that if you know how to read computer language, computer code, you can read the code of Bitcoin. Anyone can read the code of Bitcoin because it's open source. And there are many softwares around the world that are open source. Bitcoin is one of them. And that protocol is basically just a set of rules. It has rules inside of it. And so things work according to a certain set of rules. And there are rules, but there are no rulers, right? And there are teams of people that have taken the role or the job of maintaining that code, and there are very strict rules in place of not how to not change that code. And if there is a change that needs to be put in that code, then it has to go through a very rigorous process that the community actually participates in. So what we would like to one day have in an ideal democracy, for example, this is something that actually happens in Bitcoin. So every person that decides to participate in the Bitcoin network as what's called in the jargon, it's called node, run a node, which is basically running a server, right? It's a server on the decentralized network. I have a node at home, for example.
Hmm.
So you can run a node and then you take part in voting by deciding whether you adopt a certain change or you don't. And if most of the network have adopted a certain change, then that change will happen. This is in very simplistic terms, right?
Yeah.
And if they didn't, then that change will not take effect. So people actually vote with their feet. And there are hundreds of thousands of nodes already existing on this decentralized network today. It's the most safe and secure network that there is today in the world. And so you have CBDC on the one side, Bitcoin on the other side. There are many, many other aspects of Bitcoin that I didn't talk about, and we can go into it later, but I don't want to just spend all our time on that. And
Yeah.
in the middle of that spectrum, you have many other financial instruments in place that different states and central banks are playing with. I'm saying playing, quote unquote, they're experimenting with, because they all have agreed to transform the monetary system that they operate on to a digital one by the end of the decade. They may postpone it, but they're in a rush in a way to
For
do
sure.
that. And so you're seeing clear signals and trends around the world to show you that that is indeed happening. Like, for example, the trend to go cashless and have less cash in at hand and have less control over money. Like when you go to your bank today, you're being asked all these questions that are
Mm.
part of a protocol called KYC. KYC is Know Your Customer. And that is because the whole paradigm has flipped on its head, and now you are guilty until proven innocent, instead of you're innocent
Go around.
until proven guilty, because you want your money and you then bump into a banker telling you, what do you need that money for, and where did it come from, and why, and let us think about it, and we may not give it to you. And sometimes they unbank you or close your bank account or freeze
Yeah.
some of the assets. All that stuff has been happening more and more in the last few years, and it will accelerate even more. And that process, you know what? I'm actually saying thank you for it, a little bit like COVID, because the more it happens, the more people start to learn. They are forced to learn about money. And they are then forced to go down the rabbit hole that I went in and ask the first question: is this money in the bank actually mine? If the bank acts as if it's theirs, is it actually mine? And then
Yeah.
the news flash, the first thing they discover is that money is actually not yours. It's the bank's money. The moment you've decided to put your fiat, your whatever, Australian dollars, euro, US dollars, in a bank, any commercial bank, you actually signed a contract saying that the money now goes to the bank. The bank has the legal authority to then take your money, take a fraction of it, and then lend the rest of that money to someone else with interest so that they can make money.
Hmm.
And you have an IOU with the bank. And so when you come to ask for your money back, they don't even have all the 100% of the money that you gave them. They have a fraction of it,
That's
maybe
right.
2%, 5%, up to 10%, not more than that. And then when you ask for it, they go, we have to go get it. So for them to go get it, that's a process, right?
Yeah.
So this is the whole notion of the system. What I've just described is called fractional reserve, in the commercial banking system. So fractional reserve banking is the method that legally authorizes the commercial banking system to steal from us, because they keep a fraction and then they use the rest as debt, and then you beg for it, and finally you should get it if you insist, right? But you would go through some hell until you get it. And it really is legally not yours anymore. It is the bank's money, and you have an IOU with them, unless you really fight to get it back.
Hmm.
And so let's say you got it back, then you have laws forbidding you from holding too much cash, right? Or holding different assets, and then you'll get taxed on what's yours. You get taxed once, you get taxed twice, you get taxed 3 times, depending on the different types you do with your money. So you go through hell just trying to live normally within this world
Yeah.
in regards to money.
And it's totally
So,
acceptable.
right, and
Yeah.
and this is normal. And
Yeah.
so people suffer. People suffer economically, and they don't even understand that inflation is theft. And when the state actually tells them that the real rate of inflation is 2 or 3%, it's actually a lie, because what they calculate the inflation on is just a bucket of products and services that conveniently they take out all the stuff that is really appreciating in value, in price,
Hmm.
around the economy. okay, things like housing, etc. And so you would, if you really calculated the real rate of inflation, which is the monetary inflation, which is how much money the banks, the government is giving authority to the central bank to actually print, you would understand that the real rate of inflation is closer to 7, 8, 9, 10% a year. And
Wow.
if your salary is not catching up with that rate of inflation, you're actually losing money. They're
Okay.
actually debasing you all the time. They're diluting what's yours. And that's why cash is not king, because cash is a melting ice cube in your hand.
Mhm.
The more you hold it, the less value it has in terms of purchasing power. And so if you don't find a good store of value, a good asset where you can bank that money and it will not lose its value, then you're fucked. And that's why people are in a chase to try and figure out where to put the money. Where am I going to put it? Am I going to put it in real estate? Am I going to put it in bonds, which are horrible? Where am I going to put it in stocks? And they don't know how to work with the stock market, and so they lose money, or they go to crypto and they lose their pants because crypto is scam and it's like a casino. So it's a really tough jungle out there. And
Mm.
so people need to get educated. That's my bottom line. And, hopefully, if I have opened up something for you in this little rant, you will then understand to try and first put your attention onto Bitcoin, learn Bitcoin, because Bitcoin and gold are the only forms of money out there today that are real sound assets. They're sound money. It's because of their scarcity. It's because of the fact that you cannot print more of them easily. Okay, Bitcoin you cannot print anymore at all. And gold, yeah, you can go mine, but as you know, as an Australian,
Yes.
mining gold takes time, right? It takes time, it takes effort. There is proof of work into mining more gold. There is the same thing, proof of work into mining more Bitcoin. And
Mhm.
Bitcoin actually has the same process called mining. You need to mine more Bitcoin, just like you do with gold. So if there's anything that opened up out of this rant for you, go study about gold and Bitcoin. There are some excellent resources out there, but that's your safe bet to start hedging your money.
Yeah. How have you dealt with like the volatility of Bitcoin? I mean,
Right.
I understand
Question.
the
Yeah.
value and I understand the concept of it as well.
Yep.
Um, I guess
So I'll answer
like
you that. It's a
yeah,
very good
like
question. So volatility exists in Bitcoin for the short term because we're looking at a very small market cap at the moment. Bitcoin is still a very young asset. So any selling and buying in the market, it's a free market, and selling and buying is happening 24/7. And so you have very high volatility on the short run. When you look on hours and days, it keeps changing all the time. But when you zoom out and you look at a longer time frame, okay, years, look at Bitcoin in a 4-year cycle, you are only going up. So if you're a Western person, right, you live in a Western country and not in a developing country, and you want to bank your money in somewhere safe, quote unquote safe, and you want it to go with time, then think about Bitcoin as an investment for 4-year cycles at least. Don't touch it. You're buying it, you're not buying it to trade, you're buying it to save. Okay, it's a savings account. It's just like you looking at your pensions. You're not thinking about playing around with your pensions. You don't go and check your pensions every day, right?
that's
What
right.
what's my pension doing today? What's my superannuation looking like today? You don't do that. You look at it once a year in the best case scenario with your consultant, or you don't look at it at all and you look at
Until
it
you
once every
retire.
year.
Yeah, that's right.
But actually, behind the scenes, people actually invest your superannuation money in
Mm,
something. They put it on gold, they put it on Bitcoin. You don't even know about it. And so there is a volatility on the short run, but you don't even care because it's a long term play. So
I'm
that's
with
the
you.
first thing to say about the volatility. The second thing is the volatility of Bitcoin. Once you understand it, it's actually a gift, because if you if you understand that that is the best possible asset in the world and the whole world is actually going towards Bitcoin, it may take another decade or two until we get there, but the monetary system will change and it will be Bitcoin that we operate on, just like we had a gold standard hundreds of years, thousands of years actually, the world was operating on a gold standard. The next standard would be a Bitcoin one. So once you get that, you actually want the volatility, because when it goes down, it's a selling
Yeah.
opportunity. It's
Yeah.
a buying
Buying
opportunity.
opportunity.
You
Yeah.
want to buy. When there's a dip, all Bitcoiners get so excited because they've been waiting for
Mm.
the price to go down a little bit so they can buy.
I don't know about
So
all Bitcoiners. I've spoken to a few and they shit their pants when it goes down. Like,
because
yeah,
they don't
they
understand it
don't
enough.
understand it.
And I swear to God, the moment you get it, you're just waiting for it to go down. But
Yeah,
it
sure.
doesn't happen enough,
I know what you
unfortunately.
mean. But
Yeah.
and also because it's such a valuable coin now, like it's when it does go down, it goes down to like 75 grand. And then when it goes up, it's sort of like,
That's
150.
not accurate. No, you should
No?
actually take a look at the graph and see what the volatility is. Because when you're in a certain period of time, you will get the volatility, let's say from between 70 to 80, 90, we were volatile. And
Mm,
then there was a big push up
I see.
from about 90 going up to 100. We stayed
100.
on around 100, and now we're at the 120s kind of.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we always go up, but then there's a volatility in those areas. But here's the other very important thing that people need to understand about Bitcoin, and you said something about it right at the beginning. You don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. Bitcoin is
That's right.
divided to 100 million pieces, just like a dollar is divided to 100 cents. So
Hmm.
Bitcoin is divided to 100 million pieces. So you can buy as little as $1,000. And you don't really need to go all in and put all your money into Bitcoin, because you need to learn about it. So you just put a tiny bit, and then you keep learning, and then you put it a little bit more, and then you keep learning, and the more conviction and confidence you build, the more you can then be more safe and relaxed to continue buying. So you really don't need to be alert about it or concerned about it. If you've just put, I don't know, $10,000 to begin with, don't put all your stuff there. Just go
Sure.
slowly. That's what I've done. I've started very slowly and put a little chunk every now and then. And you don't need to be worried about the price either, because even with the fact that now we're at 115 or 120K US dollars per Bitcoin, in the long run it goes up forever. So if I buy now, okay,
Mm.
so I'm at 120. In 1 year time, I should be at 150 or 70 or 200 or even more. There are crazy predictions out there
Yes.
for the price of Bitcoin. So wherever you start, you will only go higher, and the earlier you do it, the better.
Mm. You only have to listen to Michael Saylor and you'll be convinced to go and put $1,000 or $10,000 on Bitcoin because he thinks it's just going to go to the
You know
moon.
what?
But
Your Aussie audience should go and listen to my episode with Peter Dunworth. He's Australian. He's
yeah,
the best Bitcoiner you have in Australia. He's such a precious person. Super smart, but also such a kind-hearted soul, and that episode is gold. It's really good. So Peter Dunworth, go to my podcast and listen to it. I'm sorry, shilling my my podcast.
no, no, go
It's just
for it.
like the
That's what it's all
Aussie
about.
audience would really relate to that one, because we also talk about the Australian economy and how Australians should look at Bitcoin and start
Mm.
investing in it.
So if I understand correctly, the asset class that you are investing in right at this minute is almost 100% into Bitcoin, right? And then
No.
and you no? Do you have real estate? Do you have gold? Do you have
Well,
silver?
I
Is there
had real
anything?
estate as an investment. I used to have an apartment for investment. I sold it and put it all to Bitcoin,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I do have physical gold.
Yep.
I have a few percent of my portfolio in physical gold, and I also have a few percent of my portfolio on one stock MicroStrategy of Michael Saylor, which is based on Bitcoin. I mean, but that is something that you may want to go into when you understand a little bit more. This is not something I recommend people to do straight away. They need to learn
Mm,
what to do and how to do it. And I'm not an expert in the stock market at all, but
sure.
if there is one stock that has performed, and Michael Saylor is quite a figure. If you're in this space, you would get exposed to him. I've interviewed him. So I bought MicroStrategy stock, and that is amazing. So these are the only two assets I have that are not Bitcoin. And I also hold a bit of fiat because I still need to,
Sure.
live in a fiat world. Although right now here in Lugano, I've taken on the challenge of living on Bitcoin only for 1 week because a lot of places here accept Bitcoin. So I
Okay,
use
so
it.
that was my another question. It's funny you say that because I was just thinking, like, when you live your life, you're operating. This is the challenge, I think, if people are entertaining this conversation and looking at another asset class because they can see the writing on the wall, so to speak, then you're operating in this fiat world. So I go to
Yeah,
work and I
yeah.
I earn money
You need to pay
some goes to me
taxes
in
and
cash and
whatever.
some goes in the bank account. And then I have to go to the grocery store and I buy it using my credit card and things like that and my debit card. So it's still Bitcoin is still a store of value. It's been sold as a well, my interpretation is it's been sold as a asset class that you can then use for everyday banking, everyday consumerism, like I don't know, consumption, those sorts of things. But at the moment, it just has, for the most part, this store of value, like gold or like a valuable piece of land or real estate somewhere, right? So you still have to go and draw down that if you want to sell some Bitcoin today, unless you're um, in an area that accepts Bitcoin as payment, which it'd have to be a very minute,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So
right?
here's the thing, Adrian. So good money, sound money has three roles.
Yeah,
One is store of value, two is medium of exchange, and three is unit of account. And Bitcoin answer all these three. However, just like gold, by the way, gold is not great for medium of exchange, but it was used in history for
sure.
trading, right? We all know that we used to have gold coins and people were actually trading with gold, and we all know the history of gold. That is one of the reasons why we are in fiat today, because it wasn't sustainable. They started diluting the amount of gold that they put in coins, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Anyway, there are three roles for sound money, and good money should serve all those three roles. However, we are early. We are very early in the game, quote unquote, game of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is only 15 or 16 years old. It started in 2009. And for a technological solution to be 16 years old and expect it to then be completely mass media, to kind of reach the whole public and the whole world to
Sure.
be using it, it's a big ask. It's just like
Absolutely.
saying, let's take the internet in 1985, about 15 years after it started, and expect that the whole world would have already used it the way you and I are using it right now. It's a
Sure.
big ask, right? It takes decades for a good technological revolution to really evolve and mature, to be a wide scale, mass adopted technology. And so, Bitcoin right now, especially in Western countries, in like the developed world, is being used mostly as a store of value because that use case is already proven. That's it, it's done. Like you get all the banks, the governments, the financial institutions, they all already acknowledge that it is an asset class that there is no other like they join the game because they cannot beat it and they cannot stop it. So the store of value role is already ticked. Now the medium of exchange role, Bitcoin has the capability of using of being used as a medium of exchange, as money for daily transactions. In fact, if you go and read the actual white paper that Satoshi Nakamoto put out there in 2009, it says, like, the title of the white paper says electronic peer-to-peer cash. So
Mhm.
that's the main reason or vision of why it was actually even invented. It was invented to use as a peer-to-peer cash solution. And you can use it right now. I mean, if you download a Lightning wallet right now, I can zap you some sats. Sats are the small
Yeah.
increments of Bitcoin, and you will get it immediately. And we may do it in the end because
Yeah.
it works. It already works out of the bag. But in terms of the whole community or economy adopting it as such, that takes time because that takes education, that takes lowering down a lot of the barriers. Some of
Absolutely.
them are psychological, some of them are regulatory, some of them are are just behavioral and,
Mm.
habits that we need to break. And so it takes time for something to evolve and mature into a wide scale um, solution that is just being used, just like the light bulb that was invented. It took
Yeah.
it some time to reach that kind of mass adoption. So it's just a matter of time, but it will
Mm.
happen. Now, if you look at other geographies around the world, like the developing countries, you have places with really shitty economy that are suffering from hyperinflation. Places like Venezuela, Argentina, Lebanon, Egypt, Turkey. There are so many more countries on that list, unfortunately, and more are joining by the day, where people are experiencing such hardship in terms of money, and their fiat is losing value so quickly. The exchange rate changes so quickly. They get a salary one day, the next day it's worth a lot less. So
Mm.
all they want to do is spend that money. They don't want to hold on to it because they know that tomorrow is going to be worth less in a very fast pace. So what they do is they swap the money straight away to Bitcoin or to USDT, which is Tether or some kind of stable coin, in order to first of all move away from their existing system, and then they trade in the digital currency. They do, this is working already with millions of people around the world. You just don't know it because you're in Australia and you don't have the
Sure.
need. But go to Argentina, go
I
to
was just
Venezuela,
about
go
to
to
say, yeah,
Egypt. Yeah, and you'll
yeah.
see how people behave there. They have learned it out of necessity. They have to,
Mm.
because they're so fucked up that they had to understand this thing very quickly. It's just like Africa leapfrogging onto mobile phones very quickly. You know that
Yeah,
trend
yeah.
happened in Africa. The same thing is happening in developing countries, including Africa, by the way, with Bitcoin and USDT. People are learning it because they have to, because they don't have bank accounts,
Mm.
because their money is losing value, because of all the things we talked about in the beginning of the conversation. And so
Yeah. When I
it
was talking
works
to
there
Jack
as a
Cruz,
medium of exchange. I've been traveling around the world the past 2 years and meeting so many communities that are using Bitcoin as a daily money.
yeah,
I've been paying with Bitcoin in El Salvador, in Austin, Texas, in Madeira in Portugal, now here in Lugano, actually even in Melbourne, in a pub in Melbourne,
yeah, no
I
way.
paid for my drink with Bitcoin. Yeah, there is
Wow.
one pub in Melbourne that accepts Bitcoin. It's so easy. It's very easy. You just need to learn and understand and not be afraid of it. And then
Mm.
actually what happens is that merchants that adopt it as a medium of exchange, they start to earn money in Bitcoin and they don't touch it. And all of a sudden they look at it and they go, oh my God, this just went up.
It's going
Like I
up.
have this
This is
reserve in
unusual.
my
Yeah,
business. Yeah,
yeah, that's
right.
right.
I'm actually earning money in my
Yeah.
business because I've decided to adopt this thing
Instead
that's
of
called
getting all these
Bitcoin.
fees taken out of my FBOS and everything like that, they've been
Exactly.
used to. Yeah,
And here you
yeah.
go. You wake up the next morning, you check your app, and you see that you've just earned 10%
It's
on your
appreciated.
money.
Mm.
Woo! That's
I was just
nice.
about to say before when I was talking to Jack Cruz on a couple of occasions, and he talks about El Salvador and how it sort of turned itself around, and Bitcoin and was a major foundation of that change. So and that's like an area that's been really cleaned up of crime, and it's not an area that you associate it with any kind of prosperity at all. It's an area that you associate with drug lords. Like it's
You used to, yeah, until four years ago, 3 years ago, it was the most dangerous place in the world
mm,
in terms of crime and the number of deaths per capita. And now it's one of the safest places in the world. It's
which is
quite
crazy,
insane
right?
what happened there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite insane. And Jack, it's funny that you bring up his name because we just had yesterday we had the panel that we did together at BTC Prague in Prague.
Hmm.
We were on stage together talking about health and censorship in a Bitcoin conference. Like it's all coming together, right?
Yeah.
And thousands of people were watching that talk, and we were kind of teaching them. We go back and forth between the communities, and we're kind of looking at that community telling the Bitcoiners, listen, you understand everything about freedom and decentralized money. Now you need to learn about decentralized health and how you can take good care of your of your medical freedom, not just
Mm.
monetary or financial freedom. So we're kind of trying to bridge those two communities because there's so many parallels between them, and Jack is doing a really good work in waking people up to all those to those two worlds. So yeah, the panel is out there, and Jack's keynote is out there, and I've also done a fireside chat with him in Prague for 2 hours. We were talking about his background, and yeah, he's a force of nature. This guy
Yeah, he's a
can be
wild guy.
obnoxious from time to time. He knows that, but
Absolutely, yeah,
he
that's right.
doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't
It does
care.
not. I was very nervous when I get a little bit jittery on every podcast. Like it's just the way it is. Even
I know.
120 odd episodes later, and you still get a little bit sort of like going on. When I tore him rip a fucking new asshole in some of the people that he was working with, I thought, I don't like, who am I? I'm just Adrian from Australia. Like he doesn't know anything about me. And I thought, you know what? There's no like reason not to believe that he could try and just go at me for whatever reason. So he was very kind on both sides. The
Yeah.
second time that I interviewed, he even smiled a little. I was like, this guy's he's not all that.
If
Anyway,
you made him smile, then you did a really good
it did a
job.
good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you over 40, successful but unfulfilled? Do you feel stuck, like you're not truly living up to who you really are? So many high achievers wake up and think, I'm a good person, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, yet there's something missing. Well, you're not alone. I've been there myself quite a few times. And quite frankly, it took a lot of years of really fucking around, trying to figure out what I now call your higher self blueprint, which has enabled me to live a life and make a living with my passions and my purpose. If you're ready to break free from a life that's holding you back, I'm hosting a free training around the 5 pillars of success that will enable you to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. So click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you in the training. But for now, let's get back to the podcast.
I wanted to talk to you about the CBDCs because one of the
Okay.
things that was a topic of conversation during COVID was the tracking and tracing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure if you experienced the same thing, but when I used to say to people, hey, listen, I'm listening to how I'm looking at how things are going, and I'm seeing this as a very good test case for how easy it would be to adopt a population that you could
Yeah.
track and trace every single movement of what they were doing. And the most common response to that was, yeah, but Adrian, they already track everything that you're doing. Like if you go to Woolworths and you buy something, your transaction is recorded. If you've got your phone on, your GPS, they know where you are. Their phone's listening, like there's a thing like Google's listening to everything you're saying. So that was the most common response, was that they do it anyway. So what's like, what is your
I
point? Like,
know.
why are
There's
you
this
getting
kind
so
of,
upset?
yeah, there's this resignation with people. They've already given up. They're like, we can't do anything about it. They already know everything about us, and we're fucked anyway. So
Yeah, that's right. But like,
let's just leave, I retire.
it's
But
just bend over and just do whatever you want with me, right? So,
yeah,
but
it's
I
a
mean,
very,
how
I
close are
find it
we
a
to,
very,
sorry, how close are we to CBDCs being like this mass adoption that you're saying is a slow creep with digital currency? But from what I hear, like, there's a very large push towards CBDCs being something that's going to be introduced fairly soon. And
mhm.
the way that some countries are now operating on a Bitcoin reserve and on a CBDC, and like all of these things have been thrown around to indicate that it's not that far around the corner where something's going to shift and all of a sudden you're going to be in a position where you've got all this cash and who cares about it? Like it's not worth anything anyway. We don't use that anymore.
Right. So first of all, everyone should go watch my keynote from Prague. In 20 minutes, I packed up exactly the answer to your question because
Mhm.
it's not a short answer. There are many facets to it. So I did a whole keynote called The Musical Chairs of the Monetary System, and it's up there on YouTube. You can just search it, and you'll see the whole 20 minutes presentation I did about it. But specifically to your question about CBDCs, CBDCs are coming whether you like it or not, depending on where you are in the world. And in Australia, sorry guys, it's coming. Okay, so this is an article from July 10th, 6 days ago, in news.com.au. Exploring opportunities, RBA, Royal Bank of Australia, takes next step in launching its own cryptocurrencies. And they're talking about the CBDC. Australia dollar is one step closer to going digital as a reserve bank announces the second phase in its anticipated pilot or trial. So pilot programs have been happening all around the world for years now. For years. And Australia has also started years ago. This is not new. And they've already had a few pilots. I have actually analyzed one of the white papers that came out of Australia in one of my previous presentations. So Australia is taking the route of a digital, they will call it a digital dollar, but it's not a digital dollar just like a stable coin is, like a USDT or Tether. It's your Australian dollar just in a CBDC format, and they will try to force feed you to believe that this is digital cash. It is not digital cash. It's the furthest thing away from cash, right? Because it has no privacy and they can know everything about you if they want to. But my belief is that they will start very gently, very nicely, just like they started in the beginning of the COVID campaign. They were all nice and lovely about it. This is for your own safety. This is to rescue grandma. This is blah, 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 all this bullshit. And then they come and they give it to you, you know, with full force, and they will start mandating things. And in fact, in one of the white papers from the Central Bank of Israel, you have actually white paper that is all about how they're going to roll it to market, how they're going to, what's their strategy of bringing it to the society. And they start with forcing the public sector to accept their salaries in CBDCs. So I don't know how many people in Australia work in the public sector today, but if you're a public sector employee, then they may tell you you have to accept your salary in Australian digital dollar. And so you already have to, right? Like some of the money is coming in like that. And then the second thing they'll say is taxes and municipality bills and fines have to be paid in CBDCs. So they can actually enforce that, right? Just like they did with the vaccines. They told you can't go here and there if you don't take the vax. And then they said they will tell merchants to adopt the point of sale machinery in order to accept CBDCs, and then they'll go the legal tender route where they will make it legal tender. You'll have a physical cash Australian dollar and you'll have CBDCs inside the legal tender law. And this is very similar to what they've done in COVID with the masks. They would fine the merchants if they had people in their stores that are not wearing masks, right? They will fine you as well, but the bigger fine would be on the actual business owner. So they would then, there would be some kind of a structure in place that they know they would get fucked if you are not wearing a mask in their store, by that turning them into police officers that have to police you to put a mask on, because they get fined and you get fined, but you may say, fuck my fine. They will say, oh, I don't want to get a $5,000 fine, right? And they will become police officers. So the same thing with CBDCs. It's like, sir, these are the only two options you have. And then they become more sophisticated. Like they have those ways of working, but then they become more sophisticated and they say, you know what, we're actually quite kind and we're quite gentle and we don't want to force anyone to do anything. And so one approach that we can take is to integrate in the back end with all the existing payment methods. So today you're using your wearables and your credit cards and your payment apps and all these different ways of paying, your Google Pay and Apple Pay. We will just integrate with them in the background. And this is what China has done. So China, with the ECNY, which is their CBDC solution, they have integrated the ECNY into a variety of consumer apps and travel apps and shopping apps. And so you have the ECNY already integrated in the back end of those apps, like WeChat Pay and Alipay are the biggest method of payments in China, and the ECNY is already integrated with them. And so they try to encourage you to use that through those methods of payments, right? So, and they can do whatever they want because they're the government, right? They can come to any company, tech company, and tell them, listen, you are under the regulation, the jurisdiction of Australia. Now you have to do as you're told. You have to integrate this thing because now it's a legal tender.
Hmm.
So, whether you like it or not, it's coming. The question is how quick or how slow, and how soft or how hard. And that all depends on the technological abilities of a certain government, and they're pretty crap with implementing technologies, but they are pretty good at collaborating with the private sector and bringing them on in order to help them implement whatever they want to implement, just like they've done during COVID. And the other thing is, they're pretty good with coercion, and they're pretty good with enforcing state power. And so if they need to get there, they'll get there. So the only question is how fast, how slow, how hard, how soft. That's the only thing.
Hmm.
And that's why I tell people, the earlier you learn about Bitcoin, the better, because that is your way of exiting, opting out of that theater, of that circus. If you don't want to be part of the fiat system anymore, the fiat is going to be transmuted into CBDCs. It's just a matter of time. If you don't want to be part of that, your only ticket out is, yeah, cash in some community that is completely off grid, and you don't play by the rules of the state, and good luck. If you have the capacity of doing that, do that. That's great. I really admire people that can do that. But if you still want to take part in modern life and live in a city, or live with some kind of connection to the state mechanisms or apparatus, then you need to have some kind of money that is not just physical, and especially if you want to travel. And Bitcoin answers that, and the state cannot take hold of your Bitcoin, right?
Interesting. Can I ask you if you were to paint a scenario for me? So let's say I'm a goody little two shoes, and I say to the government, I'm happy to pay in the CBDC. I'll accept all of my monetary value in that form, and I'll comply with everything that you say, and I'm going to operate in that system. Versus the scenario that you would be in, which is I'm going to be still living in this system, but I'm going to be operating on another monetary plane, I guess. What
Yeah.
does that what does those two lifestyles look like? Because the reason why I ask that is because you've very well articulated and given really compelling reasons for people to start to think very clearly and make a concerted effort to move towards something that's going to have a positive outcome for them and their families in the not too distant future. And, all of us, like anything, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, it's 20 years ago, right? So, the second best time is right now. So there would be a lot of people that would be really left holding the bag, and there'll be a lot of people that would be wanting to move. So how do you then operate in this same system? Because it's not like you're going to say, you're saying, Adrian, I'm taking all my Bitcoin, I'm going with Elon to fucking Mars, and we're all going to be there. So, it's a new system. You're saying to me, I'm still operating on Earth, and all of the things that I have modern conveniences for, I'm not moving out to the country and, raising chickens and growing vegetables.
Yeah.
But I'm
Well,
still,
I may, because I
okay,
like doing that, but
sure.
yeah, it's a really good question. So I think we are in a transitory phase. In the
Hmm.
next few years and even decade, we are in a transitory phase. It's part of my presentation that you'll go and check out on YouTube. Um, and when we get to that phase of transition between one monetary system to another, and one empire that rules with the world reserve asset to another, that period is most of the time characterized by wars and emergencies and pandemics and all that bullshit. And we have to kind of survive that transition period. And many people don't survive for various reasons. But if we survive that transition period, then we have to land in some operational scenario to continue living our lives under different conditions. And many people that have already adopted Bitcoin to their lives are kind of preparing themselves for a new reality in which they hold an asset that will help them operate in the new world. They understand that. And they're already taking their first steps into experimenting and trying to live their lives partially with that asset. So whether it would be like me, trying to use it as a medium of exchange where I can, whether it would be developing circular economies with other like-minded people that you can use that asset as a monetary asset between you. And there are many circular economies like that around the world, hundreds of them actually. Whether it would be just using it as an investment and understanding that you have like one foot in that world and another foot in the fiat world, and you're stepping in and out of it, and you transfer your monetary asset all the time between those two. That is a very valid thing to do, and many people do that. So I know I have a lot of friends that all of their, like you asked me before, 100% of their wealth is in Bitcoin. Not like me, like 100%. And then what they do is, wherever they are in the world, they just cash out a little bit and swap it to the fiat in the country that they're in, and they live off of that because they still have to live off fiat. And so a scenario that is quite common in the Bitcoin community when I travel around between conferences is, and I meet friends, they ask me, do you want 2,000 euros worth of Bitcoin? Like, I'll give you Bitcoin, give me $2,000 because, or euros, because they don't have any. They have Bitcoin. And I would go, yeah, sure, of course. And then we do the swap between us because Bitcoin is peer to peer. So we don't need to get permission or approval from anyone to do that transaction. We just swap the money. I give 2,000 worth of Bitcoin out of my, they give me 2,000 euros worth of Bitcoin out of their wallet, and I give them 2,000 euros. And we're both happy, right? And so many people live like that. So there are many different types of transactions or use cases or ways in which people are already starting to experiment what a new life would look like. And people are taking it a lot further than that. So with the circular economies, there are communities of people actually living in a different standard already. And when you say circular, it's not because it just goes in a circle, but because the rule is, don't sell your Bitcoin. You can buy something with it, but don't sell it for fiat. Keep Bitcoin in the community between everyone. So you can buy something for Bitcoin, then the next person does not sell it for fiat, but they buy something with that Bitcoin, etc., etc. So it goes in a kind of a circular economy. And you have economies like that in Costa Rica, in Guatemala, and most of those economies are run by Westerners that are going to those. You know how many Australians I've met around the world, Bitcoiners that are living like that?
Yeah.
Australians, Canadians, Americans, British, German. They are spread all around the world trying out their new life in a different way with like-minded people. It's quite spectacular. It's quite beautiful to see.
And
But
what if I
it's
just toe the
different.
line and do everything that the government tells me? What's my life look like then?
Well, well, then you're a normie and you don't care. So
Yeah.
have fun with your life and just live your life the way you want to. You're bound to live a very programmed life, a very compliant life. Your audience knows very well what it looks like from COVID. And you're bound to be corrupted by the system to have your virtues and morals destroyed, because you'll be dubbing people in, you'll be telling the police, you'll be trying to police other people to behave like you. This is a horrible way of living. If you don't have integrity and you don't have morals and values and you don't give a fuck to police other people or to think that you are superior to someone else and can tell them what is right or wrong for them and completely intrude their free will, And so go ahead and live like that. This is not for me. This is
Mm.
probably not for your audience either. I believe in free choice, free will, free speech, and yeah, free movement, and people should do whatever they want. And so if you're in that camp and you don't care, then go ahead. Your fiat is going to be transformed into into CBDCs at one point. By the way, I don't need to tell you that, but unrealized gains tax in Australia, this is ridiculous. You guys, if
Crazy.
you don't start learning about money and fiat after this conversation, you are fucking crazy, because you live in a country that is going to fucking tax you for something that did not happen, and you are accepting it. So this is compliance. If you are not making one move to better your situation, to better your life in a financial perspective, then, you know, I don't know why you woke up during COVID.
Yeah, good point. Look, and that's probably, I hate to say it, but it's only some of the things that are happening quite readily here in Australia. I think like I don't know why there's not many people just screaming from the rooftops as to, what is going on with our government and the things that they're just haphazardly pushing through, and no one's contesting it. No one's being asked permission about it. Like it's just absolutely
Yeah,
crazy. But I've
but
said this
that's
so
not
many
gonna
times.
change. It's not, well, it may change a little bit, because the more you rattle and shake the jar, the more the insects wake up.
Yeah,
So it may happen a little bit more. I'm sorry that I'm not the biggest optimistic one on that front, saying, people will wake up, people will wake up. It's like, I don't really think so. I think people are pretty dumbed down. And the, psychologically speaking, they are so resigned and have given up on many things in their lives that all they want is just to live quietly. They don't want to think, they don't want to take action, they don't want to make changes. People are so afraid of change. And if you just find the courage
mm,
to make a change in your life, whether it would be by learning something new or by actually acting on it, then you will better your situation, because life is energy, and energy keeps moving. Energy is not stuck. If you are stuck, you are bound to get down with life, and that is not the way. That is not the way to live life. So people need to act on it. And I don't think that people that are listening to your podcast, Adrian, are dumbed down. Otherwise, they wouldn't be listening to you, right? You have woken up, and your audience is the same. And so that kind of audience, that kind of people know that they can do something to change their lives.
agreed.
There is never like being resigned and giving up on yourself and or on your life, whether it's in relationships or money or food or health or whatever it is in. It's just a whistling way of living. It's like selling out. You're
It
selling
is.
out on yourself.
I think you
And
nailed it. I think like the this podcast was spawned out of the intent to help people that want to be helped. Like you can show
exactly.
them the door, but you can't make them walk through it, right? At the end, and my
Exactly.
screaming and yelling and everything that went on in 2020 and 2021
Yeah.
was like eventually I think all of us come to the realization that there's only so much yelling and screaming you can do, and it doesn't do really any good, right? So there's a battle that is on my doorstep, and I think true spirituality and evolution of your own consciousness is what's in front of you and in this moment and what you're dealing with right now. um so
And
yeah,
and you
that
can't force feed people with that. They have to
agreed.
want
Yeah,
to
and
change.
and again, this
It's the
podcast is designed, like you rightfully said, for people that want to learn a little bit more. That's why, like
Yeah.
I'm not like you in a sense of all in on one thing. I know that my life has become richer for the knowledge that I learned, whether it be in health or finance or fitness, or whether it be in relationships or raising children.
Adrian, I'm
Like
not all in on one thing. Don't put
yeah.
me in that
Oh,
box. I
sorry.
am
Well, I mean,
very, I'm very wide.
okay, my apologies.
It's
What
just
I've
my
listened to
work to
you,
be
I
a
seem to be
journalist,
like,
and
or you're
yeah,
all in on the monetary side of things, ethics, AI, CBDCs, that I meant sort of like that.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that you're a very well-rounded person, so maybe we can circle back at another time. We'll talk about other things. You know, there's like so many more topics that we can discuss. But look, for those people who may not have heard of you, and this is their first introduction to you, where would be the best place to go and find some of your work? You've already mentioned your BTC Prague talk, which is amazing, and that's how I found you. Where would the best place for people to go?
I'll give you one link for my link tree that has all the different links to my podcast, my
Yeah,
blog,
perfect.
my X, etc. So I'll give you one link.
Yeah, too easy. All right, will
We'll
you
put
send
it
that
in
to
the
me,
show
and then I'll
notes.
pop
Yeah.
it in the show notes, and yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully, you'll be in Australia soon, and we'll get to catch up. I've seen a bunch of photos with a few friends of mine and people that I've had on the show a bunch. Pete Evans, Alexander Svetsky, like
Hey.
there's a couple of people there that like I know those guys, so it's
Yeah.
good.
They're amazing. So Pete and I recorded a great episode that will go out on the pod soon, and Svetsky as well. And I'll be in Australia early next year probably to see my son, to hang out a little bit. So yeah, maybe we can meet in person. That would be great.
Sounds great. All right, Efrat, a pleasure to meet you. Lovely to talk. I really enjoyed this conversation, and look forward to circling back sometime soon. Okay,
Thanks for the time.
my pleasure. Bye for now.